Have you ever had that chilling sensation, that prickly feeling on the back of your neck, that you're being watched? It's a primal fear. The idea that an unseen pair of eyes is fixed on you, tracking your every move. It's the stuff of nightmares. But for some, it's a terrifying reality. Tonight, we're delving into that darkness. We're sharing 3 classic, true scary stories about stalkers. These aren't just tales. They're harrowing accounts from people who found themselves the unwilling focus of a stranger's obsession. From a mysterious figure at the window to the unsettling discovery of a break-in, these experiences will remind you to always check your locks. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and prepare to hear what happens when a stranger decides they want to get a little too close. Our first story comes from a woman named Chloe, who lived alone in a charming, but somewhat isolated, ground-floor apartment. She loved the big windows that let in so much natural light, but one night, they became a source of pure terror. It was a Tuesday, just like any other. Chloe was in her kitchen, making a late dinner. Her back was to the living room window, which looked out onto a small, unfenced patch of grass that bordered a quiet street. As she stirred up pasta, she caught a flicker of movement in her peripheral vision. She dismissed it as a passing car's headlights or maybe a stray cat. But a few minutes later, it happened again. This time, it was more distinct. A shadow, briefly obscuring the glow of the street lamp outside. An uneasy feeling began to crawl up her spine. She turned off the stove, her appetite suddenly gone. She tried to tell herself she was being paranoid, but her heart was hammering against her ribs. Slowly, cautiously, she crept towards the living room, staying out of the direct line of sight of the window. She peeked through the sliver of space between the curtain and the window frame. Her breath hitched in her throat. Standing just feet away on the grass, shrouded in the dim light, was a man. He was perfectly still, his body angled directly towards her apartment, his face a pale, featureless oval in the gloom. He was just staring right at her window. Chloe stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. She scrambled for her phone, her fingers fumbling with the screen as she dialed 911. Her voice was a shaky whisper as she explained the situation. The operator told her to lock herself in a secure room and that police were on their way. Chloe ran to her bathroom, locked the door, and huddled in the bathtub, listening with bated breath. Every creak of the old building, every rustle of leaves outside, sounded like the man trying to get in. It felt like an eternity, but soon she heard the welcome sound of sirens growing closer. When the police arrived, they found no one. The man was gone, vanished as silently as he had appeared. There were no footprints, no evidence he had ever been there, except for the lingering image seared into Chloe's memory. For weeks, she couldn't sleep without the lights on. She bought thick, blackout curtains and never stood near a window after dark again. She never found out who the man was or what he wanted. She only knew that, for a few terrifying minutes, a complete stranger had stood outside her home, watching her and turning her safe space into a scene of unspeakable dread. Next, we have a story from Mark, a college student who learned that sometimes the most terrifying threats are the ones you do not see coming. Mark lived in an off-campus house with 2 roommates. It was a bit run down, but it was cheap, and they felt relatively safe. That all changed one weekend when his roommates went home to visit their families, leaving Mark alone in the house for 2 days. The first sign that something was wrong was small, almost insignificant. When he got home from his part-time job on Saturday afternoon, he noticed the welcome mat outside their front door was crooked. He straightened it without a second thought, assuming one of his roommates had kicked it on their way out. Later that evening, while watching a movie, he went to the kitchen for a snack. He opened the silverware drawer and froze. The forks and spoons were switched. They always kept the forks on the left and the spoons on the right. It was a weird house habit. Now, they were reversed. A cold knot formed in his stomach. Was he going crazy? Had he done it himself and forgotten? He tried to brush it off, but the feeling of unease lingered. He did a quick check of the house. The doors were locked. The windows were secure. Nothing seemed out of place. He chalked it up to stress from his upcoming exams and tried to relax. The next morning, the feeling of dread returned with a vengeance. He woke up and walked into his bedroom closet to get dressed, and that's when he saw it. Sitting perfectly upright on the top shelf, nestled between his folded sweaters, was a single, withered, brown apple. Mark had not bought apples in months. He stared at it, his mind racing. The crooked mat. The silverware. And now this. This was not a prank. His roommates were gone. This was a message. Someone had been in the house. Not to steal anything, but to move things. To let him know they could get in whenever they wanted, that they could get into his private spaces, even his bedroom closet. Panique set in. He grabbed his phone and wallet and ran out of the house, not even bothering to lock the door. He drove to a friend's place and called the police. They came and inspected the house, but just like in Chloe's case, there were no obvious signs of forced entry. The officer suggested it might have been an elaborate prank, but Mark knew better. The deliberate, subtle changes were far more menacing than a simple robbery. It was a psychological game, and he was the pawn. He and his roommates broke their lease and moved out the following week. Mark never knew who was entering his home, but the memory of that withered apple on his closet shelf served as a constant chilling reminder that someone had been watching him silently moving through his life, and he had been completely unaware. Our final story is perhaps the most unnerving of all, because it happened in broad daylight, in a place crowded with people. It comes from a young woman named Sarah, who was shopping at a large, sprawling mall one afternoon. She was browsing in a bookstore, enjoying the quiet hum of the place, when she first noticed him. He was a man of average height and build, wearing a nondescript gray hoodie. He seemed to be looking at the same shelf of books as her, but she felt his eyes linger on her a little too long. She moved to another section, and a few minutes later, she saw him again, now pretending to read a magazine nearby. A small alarm bell went off in her head, but she told herself she was being silly. It was a public place, after all. Coincidences happen. She left the bookstore and headed towards the food court. As she was ordering a drink, she scanned the crowd and her heart leaped into her throat. Tere Iwas, the man in the gray hoodie, standing near a pillar, not looking at the food menus, but looking directly at her. Now, she knew this was no coincidence. He was following her. A wave of cold fear washed over her. She grabbed her drink and started walking quickly, weaving through the throng of shoppers, trying to put as much distance between them as possible. She didn't dare look back. She ducked into a busy department store, hoping to lose him in the aisles of clothing. For 10 minutes, she wandered aimlessly, her eyes darting around, her body tense. She didn't see him. A small sigh of relief escaped her lips. Maybe she had lost him. She decided to head for the exit closest to her car. As she stepped back out into the main concourse of the mall, her relief turned to ice. He was there, waiting. Standing by the exit she was heading towards, as if he knew exactly where she would go. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He just stood there, his expression blank, his eyes locked on hers from across the hall. Sarah's mind went blank with panic. She felt trapped. The mall, once a place of casual fun, now felt like a labyrinth with a predator at its center. Her instincts took over. She turned and ran in the opposite direction, towards a different exit on the other side of the mall. She didn't look back. She burst through the doors into the parking garage and sprinted towards her car, fumbling for her keys. She jumped inside, locked the doors, and sped out of the garage, her tires squealing. She kept checking her rearview mirror the entire drive home, terrified she'd see his car behind her. She never saw the man again. She reported the incident to mall security, but with only a vague description, there was little they could do. Who was he? Why did he follow her? Sarah would never know. The experience left a deep scar. For months, she was afraid to go out in public alone, constantly looking over her shoulder, haunted by the memory of those vacant eyes watching her, turning a normal day into a waking nightmare. These stories are a chilling reminder that the world isn't always as safe as it seems. The fear of being stalked is not just about physical danger. It's about the psychological violation, the loss of security, and the terrifying realization that you've become the object of someone's unwanted obsession. It's the stranger at the window, the intruder in your home, the silent shadow in a crowd. It's a fear that can linger long after the immediate threat is gone. Stay aware, trust your instincts, and always look out for one another. Thank you so much for joining me in the dark tonight. If you found these stories as unsettling as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true scary stories. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next video.